Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets powered by FTN right here on Game Plus Network. Thanks as always for taking the time to hang out. Hopefully everybody having a great day. Yesterday was absolutely awesome. Finally, week one of the NFL kicked off, and what a game. It was a really entertaining football game. A lot of fun, a lot of passing, a lot of points. We have a jam-packed show here today. We're going to break down that Cowboys and Buccaneers game here throughout the entire show. Basically, I got some takeaways here at the top, and also we're going to bring Matthew Freedman in here. He follows the Cowboys pretty closely, but he is an absolute sharp mind over at FTN Bets and also FTN Bets, FTN Daily, FTN Fantasy, of course, Bets Media as well. He's got a brand new fantasy football show. It is the Freedman Fantasy Football Show, which you can catch on Bets TV. He is at MattFtheOracle. We are going to talk week one picks, get some of his favorite picks, his takeaways from last night, some sides, some totals, as well as some props. And we also have Javier Prellezo in here as well. Another guy who follows the Cowboys closely. I didn't plan this, honestly. I did not plan this, but it kind of works out perfectly that we can get their thoughts on the boys and the Bucks game from last night. With Javi, we're going to talk some DFS plays. He, of course, is the GOAT over at FTNDaily.com and a lot of his content over at FTNBets.com and FTNFantasy.com as well. So a jam-packed show. I got some picks and some props. Towards the end of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about Prize Picks today. They have an amazing promo happening right now. Amazing. A lock. Absolutely a lock. One of their props that they are offering for this weekend only. And the time is clicking, like less than 36 hours to get in on this. That's right. Sunday football in less than 36 hours. Pumped. Absolutely pumped. All right. So let's talk about last night, 31-29, cruise to the over, Cowboys cover. I was on Tampa. Not going to lie. I had Tampa 7.5. I bet it weeks ago. And, you know, maybe we would have got it if Chris Godwin didn't fumble at the end, but there was still about 4.5 minutes left. And, you know, Dallas was pushing the ball down the field pretty easily last night, I thought. You know, I was very impressed with Dak Prescott. That was my big takeaway from the game. Dak Prescott looked great. He really did. For a guy that didn't get in there in the preseason at all, no real reps, and just coming off the 2 ankle surgeries and then dealing with the shoulder injury, the lat issue. And I thought he looked really good. I thought he showed a lot of poise in the pocket. He didn't run around a lot. He doesn't really anyways. He can. He has before in the past. There was a couple moments when he was running, I believe, in the third quarter where he kind of hesitated. He looked like he was going to go, and he said, no. I think I'm going to get caught. I think it was Shaq Barrett who ended up catching him and throwing him down. But, you know, I thought Dak looked good. Again, 42 for 58. 58 throws for Dak, 403 yards. He cruised past his prop. Total was 286.5. He had 3 touchdowns and a pick. Tom Brady looked amazing as well. Tom Brady, like, what else can you say about this guy? 44 years old and looking just like a 25-year-old stud. Like, he is unreal, man. 32 for 50, 379 and 4 touchdowns. He cruised past the over as well. Almost 1,000 yards passing between these 2 quarterbacks. Pretty remarkable stuff. And everybody had fantastic days besides Mike Evans and the running backs. We'll get into those guys in just a little bit. Let's start with the Dallas side of things. Amari Cooper, 16 targets, 13 catches, 139 yards, and 2 touchdowns. To see a lot of people, oh my goodness, he went as wide receiver 15. He went in the 4th round. Can you believe it? Yeah, I can believe it. Like, he's really good, but there's also 14 other good wide receivers in the league, right? Twitter is so fun, especially, you know, we've waited so long for week one of the NFL season. So you'll hear this all the time, like, he's an absolute steal. I can't believe he was going in the 4th. I can't believe on average he was wide receiver 15. And guess what? He's wide receiver 1 overall right now, but there's still a ton more games to happen this weekend. Amari Cooper is really good. He is undervalued. He does get disrespected in fantasy and in the real life. No question. He has his ups and downs, but he's going to be a big-time player in this offense. And if you have him, good for you. And same with CeeDee Lamb, and same with Dak, and same with a lot of these weapons in this offense, because for me, you know, I thought as good as Dak looked in that game, and I mean, people are talking MVP. Sure, it's just one game. Comeback player of the year. I think a lot of people were on that. And I think if you have that bet, good for you. That's another one that you can check off and feel great about it. Same thing with Dak as maybe potentially being an MVP. I thought this Dallas team looked a lot like the Dallas team of last season. Still a lot of questions on defense. And what we saw in the first few weeks of last year, up-tempo offense, throwing the football quite a bit, and Dak looking really good. It's probably just going to continue to carry over. Now, We'll get into Zeke in a little bit. Lamb, 15 targets, 7 catches, 104 yards, 1 touchdown. Great. He lined up all over the field, 38 snaps outside, 23 in the slot, even in the backfield. Because sometimes they do the end arounds with him in a couple carries. He's so explosive after the catch. He did have a couple bad drops, but I mean, it's going to happen. He had some drops last year as well. He did reel in half of his targets, 7 grabs, as I mentioned, for 104 yards. Gallup looked good, too, before he went down with an ankle injury. Not hearing too much on the status, but he left and he didn't return. 7 targets, 4 grabs for 36 yards. The biggest thing is Zeke here. 11 rushes for 33 yards, 2 catches for 6. I think, a lot of people are not a ton. Like, I don't get the amount of questions that some people do in the industry, like Mr. Jake Seeley, and I'll be with him on Monday and All in Football over at Bets TV. But a few people reached out last night, a couple DMs. What do I do with Zeke? Should I sell? Should I try to acquire him? What's going on? I think the biggest thing for me is it was just one game, right? It was against the toughest run defense in the league. Last year, number 1 against the run. 2019, number 1 against the run. I thought Dallas had a near perfect game plan, and they executed it pretty well. Like, if they don't miss a couple kicks or they don't give Tom Brady a minute 24 left, maybe that game finishes differently and they win the game. But Zeke, like, what are you going to do with Zeke? Are you going to just hand the ball off to him 15 times to run into a wall? I thought the game plan was executed pretty much perfectly. You take it week by week. They exploited some holes in the Bucs secondary. I don't think that Dak is going to throw the ball 50-plus times a game. That's not going to be the recipe for success when it comes to this Cowboys team. They are 4-11 when Dak throws the ball at least 40 times. So that's just not going to fly. You can't just throw the ball 50-plus times and expect to win. Now, we all like that for fantasy. That's what we want. We want up-tempo, especially if you have these weapons in fantasy and you have Dak and you have Lamb and you have Cooper. That's what you want. You want to see the up-tempo, throw the football. They are going to run with Zeke in certain situations. They're probably not in that game if Zeke has 20-plus carries, right? I think that Dak looked great. They executed that game plan, and they were right there with the Bucs, the defending Super Bowl champs. So don't overreact. He played over 80% of the snaps. He was phenomenal blocking, and that was his role yesterday. He was blocking. Yes, he's paid a ton of money to do more than block, but he played over 80% of the snaps, 82, 70 snaps to Pollard's 20 snaps. Let's not overreact. If there's an opportunity to buy low, sure. And I know what people are thinking. Who the heck is going to trade Zeke? You spent a high pick on him. You got him in an auction. You spent the first round. Nobody's picking him. You'd be surprised. Or trading him. You would be surprised. I would just check in on the owner. Why not? Just check in, say, hey, what do you think of Zeke? Could I get Zeke? Like, what could you trade for Zeke? It's probably like a 2-for-1. Like, you're not going to trade a Sony Michel, a Josh Jacobs. You're not going to get a Zeke for that. It could be a 2-for-1. Heck, I mean, lots of injuries happen in the NFL. You always should check in on the owner. You always should check in on the owner. That's all I'll say about the Dallas Cowboys. Remember, Zach Martin didn't play in that game yesterday as well. For Tampa, I mean, all systems go. Godwin, 14 targets, 9 grabs, 105 yards, a touchdown. He had the fumble at the end. He had a 30% target share. Brown, 7 targets, 5 catches, 121 yards, touchdown. He had a 15% target share. It's very efficient with his targets. Gronk, right? Gronk, unbelievable. A conversation that I had with Jake last week is that maybe it just took some time for Gronk. Remember, he took the year off. He dealt with so many injuries. And then towards the end of the season and into the postseason, he was awesome. And he was awesome last night. 8 targets, 8 grabs, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns. I had an 18-1 first touchdown prop on Gronk. It was kind of frustrating considering he found the end zone twice. And they were in the red zone. And I thought, in that first touchdown that they had, that maybe would look Gronk's way, but they ended up going to Chris Godwin there. But that's the 100th time that they hooked up for a touchdown, Brady and Gronk. I joked on Twitter last night that he probably only needs 4 or 5 touchdowns to finish as a top 5 tight end. He may just finish as a top 5 tight end, as weak as that position is. Always have Gronk ranked inside the top 10 because of the upside that he has catching passes in the end zone. But he played 57 snaps. O.J. Howard played 6, and Cameron Brate played 19. Evans, 6 targets, 3 grabs, 24 yards, 13% target share. So the fact that there's so many weapons here inside this offense, that it could just turn out like this, that maybe Antonio Brown has a down game in week 2 and Evans is the guy and maybe Godwin has the down game and Evans and AB have great games. Like, that's just going to happen. That's why AB was going a little bit later on. Now he's another guy, terrific value if you have him. I mean, he's so smooth. He's so fun to watch. He looked so slick last night. Oh man, I love AB when he is just like, all the nonsense is just like, forget about it. The off-field stuff is not an issue, and just play football. Man, there's not a lot of players that are better than AB. He's just, his route running, he's just so darn slick. He had a great game last night. But Godwin is my favorite of the bunch, of the three. He's got a role in the slot. I think from a PPR standpoint, you have to feel really good about him. And for Evans, I don't think he's ever really going to lead the team in targets. There's going to be a couple games here and there. He's going to be a player inside the red zone, but he will, I think, out of the three, he's probably my least favorite of the trio. One takeaway that I had, the Bucs were the first team in the last 81 years to win despite losing the turnover margin by 3 and also giving up 30 first downs. So maybe Dallas let one slip last night. The defense, I still has a lot of question marks. Again, I was very impressed with what they did on offense, but I thought Tampa looked a little sloppy, and that carries us over here to the running backs. Ronald Jones with a fumble, 4 for 14. He was benched after that fumble. Leonard Fournette also a fumble on a catch. He ends up playing 42 snaps, 9 for 32, 5 catches for 27 yards. Gio plays 17 snaps, no rushing attempts. What we've been talking about a lot here on this show is just, Gio, he's going to need an injury for him to become fantasy relevant, but he was on the field in that final drive in a third down roll too. He finishes with 2 catches for 12 receiving yards. All right, that's it. I mean, Ronald Jones is in the doghouse. Yikes. It's a backfield that it's going to be a confusing backfield all year long, but there's a lot of offense in that game yesterday, and I don't think people should be surprised that there was a lot of offense. It's both of those teams have really good weapons and 2 very strong quarterbacks. So my goodness, week 1, off to a slamming start. Not going to lie, and I'm feeling pretty good about the Cowboys blowing that lead late last night. Matthew Freedman is hanging by. I got some prize pick stuff for you, and plus we'll touch on the Baltimore backfield. Another injury out of that backfield and a top corner from the team. And Marcus Peters gone. Unbelievable stuff. Keep her locked. Mean Streets continues right here on Game Plus Network. Welcome back to Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney here, hanging out with you. If you have any questions throughout the show, you're following along on my Twitter account, please. Any start sit questions, go ahead. I got a couple here that I'll address at the end of the show, but please ask them, and we'll try to help you out here a little bit. So before we get into prize picks and that amazing promo that they have going on, the Ravens signed Latavius Murray here this morning. Oh my goodness, Gus Edwards went down. He is done for the season with the ACL. He tore his ACL. And then on the very next play in practice, something that Marcus Peters has done numerous times in practice, just running drills, he tears his ACL as well. What is going on in Baltimore? It is unbelievable. It started with Rashad Bateman, and it, trickled down through other wide receivers. And then, Mark Andrews missed a little bit of time, but he's fine. Brown looks like he's fine for week 1. And then J.K. Dobbins goes down. And then Justice Hill goes down, and now Gus Edwards, and now Marcus Peters. Oh my goodness, it is awful. I just hate saying this, but it's the Browns division to lose. Like, we're just in this business that we just have to, turn the page and try to look at it another way. And they're just Baltimore's going in with a lot of question marks here. It's going to be really tough for them to overcome it. Harbaugh's a really good coach. I'm sure he's going to get those guys ready to go on Monday Night Football. I think a pretty tough environment. First game in Las Vegas with fans. It's going to be bumping there. It's going to be a really tight game. I think we could see an upset, but it's just such a tough go, man. When it rains, it pours, and Baltimore is really going through something right now. It's crazy. But Tyson Williams is going to get some run here, especially early on. I don't know if 18-1 for first touchdown is still on the board, but I have it in the FTN Bet Tracker. Elliott Chris has it in the FTN Bet Tracker. We jumped on that right away. FTN Alerts is a Twitter handle that you're going to want to follow. You get those bets, you get those alerts right away when we put them in. He's plus 240 to score a rushing touchdown in that game. But I think Latavius Murray is going to be interesting here. He's a must add. I think he has upside to be, a high-end RB2 inside this offense. Now, they signed Devonta Freeman and Le'Veon Bell, but I think both of those guys are washed. I don't think that they're going to offer too much offensively. And Tyson Williams is going to have a role. He could carve out one, especially if he looks really good early on. But Latavius Murray is coming off a career-high 4.5 yards per carry last season. I think he's a pretty solid running back who can catch. Honestly, I'm looking and I'm thinking Gus Edwards has been really good, but I viewed him as a back that probably wouldn't catch a lot of passes, like 700 plus yards in each of the past 3 seasons, and like one of 6 backs to do that. Latavius can catch. He can pull in a few grabs. It may take a little bit of time, learn the playbook, get in there. He did look pretty sluggish and slow in the preseason, won't lie. There was a reason the Saints cut him. Now he wanted more money, the Saints wanted him to take less money, and he said, screw that. I'm not doing that. And now he goes into a team where he's, going to get more touches, I think, than what he would have had with the Saints. So roster him. Let's not get too carried away, but roster him absolutely. Again, I think he has upside to be an RB2. My rankings are updated over at FTNFantasy.com. I have Williams as RB30 this week after the Denver backs, after the San Fran backs. Kareem Hunt revenge spot against KC. That's not why that's not the reason I have Hunt ranked ahead of him, but it's 50 plus point total. Like there's gonna be some points scored in that game, especially if Cleveland is down. Hunt could catch a few balls. And then I have guys I have after Williams: Connor, Nyheim Hines, Tevin Coleman, Singletary, players like that to give you a little bit of a feel. But if you have a question, maybe you have Williams or somebody else that you have a question, ask it and we can address it here on this show. I can get to it later on if I don't see it before the show does wrap up. Other news items here: Austin Eckler, not seeing anything as of today. I mentioned yesterday, today is the big day. I saw him tweet that earlier yesterday that he was so amped for this game. I don't know. Does that mean that he's sitting? I think he's fine, but he was sidelined yesterday. Jamison Crowder is out. That's great news for Elijah Moore. He's 3K on DK. Corey Davis is a guy that we've been pumping here on this show for weeks. It's great news for Corey Davis as well. Emmanuel Sanders is questionable with a foot injury. I don't know if he's going to play. You're not starting this guy anyways. I really like Gabriel Davis this year. I really do. Not a phenomenal matchup this week, but Davis is interesting. I think he has the highest upside out of him, Sanders, Davis, and Cole Beasley. Nelson Aguilar, ankle, didn't practice Thursday. It looks like he could potentially miss this game. Jacoby Myers is somebody who could be a wide receiver 3, more so a flex, but could be a top 40 wide receiver this week. All right, Prize Picks. They're doing something super cool this weekend only. Patrick Mahomes, they have his passing yard prop at 0.5. 0.5. You get Mahomes in your flex play, your power play, it's an automatic. Like, let's be serious. He's going to have 1 passing yard here this weekend against the Cleveland Browns. So if you're unfamiliar with Prize Picks, use a promo code FTN, a 100% first deposit match of up to $100. They're going to double your entry, whatever you put in, up to $100. We have free content over at FTNDaily.com. We have a free Prize Picks Discord channel where we share a lot of our picks. You can mix and match across all the sports that they offer, and they really do offer absolutely every sport over at prizepicks.com. So if you're unfamiliar, again, flex play, it's 2 out of 3. You hit 2 out of 3. How many times do you have a 3-leg parlay and you're like, oh my goodness, I got 2 right and I didn't get anything for it? 2 correct plays is 1.2 times your return, 1.25. You get all 3 right, it's 2.25. You want to go to the power play, you have to get them all right. 3 for 3 is 5 times return. So get Mahomes in there. And I got a couple that I addressed yesterday that I'll address here today in case you missed it, kind of rapid fire before we bring in Matthew Freedman. Jalen Hurts has gone from 40 rushing yards to 47. It's getting a little high now. I still like it, but I'll just stay away from it. But he is a guy that had 272 rushing yards in 4 games last year, 68 per game, at least 60 in 3 of the 4. And the Falcons allowed the ninth most rushing yards to the position, and the second most fantasy points overall to quarterbacks last season. 6 rushing touchdowns, 2 off the league high. So I'm a little bit wary of that 47.5. I think he probably gets over that, but Devontae Smith hasn't changed. He's at 43.5. A great matchup here. The Falcons allowed the second most fantasy points to wide receivers last year. This game inside a dome, it could be a track meet. Both teams play up tempo. There's new offensive coordinators with these teams and new coaching staffs, but I still think that they'll play an up tempo game and they're going to have some holes defensively. We could see a shootout here. Calvin Ridley has gone up as well. 77.5 yesterday. Today he's 84.5, but I would take the over on that one. And I like the over 6 grabs. 8 100-yard games last season for him. Air yards, top 5 in both, 41% of his team's air yards overall. Matt Ryan, the most passing attempts last season, top 3 in each of the past 3 years. But it's more so about Julio being gone. It was 8 games last year without Julio, and using our splits tool over at FTNFantasy.com, he averaged 109 receiving yards in the 8 games without Julio. He had 2 more catches, 3 more targets, and 33 more yards. The Eagles allowed the 9th most fantasy points to wide receivers last year. They have a lot of holes in their secondary. Their strength is their run defense, right? It's a funnel offense. You can pass all over the Phillies secondary. Calvin Ridley is going to have himself a day. Marvin Jones over 54.5 receiving yards and over 4 catches. He had 7 grabs for 93 yards in the preseason, 9 targets in 2 preseason games, just part of 2 preseason games, really. He hardly played with Trevor Lawrence, just leaning on the vet. The Texans allowed them 8th most receiving yards last year to wide receivers, 11 plays of at least 40 yards through the air, which is the 2nd most in football, the 7th most fantasy points to wideouts, the 8th most catches, and the 4th most touchdowns. And overall, just the 2nd most yards. I think Marvin Jones is in a really good spot here. I think he finds the end zone too, if you want to find a touchdown prop for Jones, who has had at least 9 touchdowns in 3 of the past 4 seasons. And then the final one, I like Raheem Mostert to find the end zone. It's like a over 0.5 touchdowns. Detroit allowed 134 rushing yards per game last season. San Fran, the 2nd biggest favorite here this weekend. They're going to lean on the run. And as much as I like Trey Sermon, Mostert is healthy right now, and he's going to be the lead back. And now they could sprinkle both guys in there, especially if they get up big. But this is a team that wants to run the football. They're going to run all over Detroit. They allowed a league-high 27 rushing touchdowns last season. San Fran has a 26.5 team implied totals, the 8th highest of the week. As I mentioned, the 2nd biggest favorites here. So if they get up big, they're going to run the rock quite a bit. All right. Check out prizepicks.com. Take advantage of that. That's a freebie. Mahomes, over 1 yard, over half a yard. Is 1 yard? Are you kidding me? It's a freebie. Get in there, have some fun. Again, free content over at FTNDaily.com. Let's take a quick break, and we'll bring in Matthew Freedman, MattFtheOracle. We'll talk about his brand new fantasy show over at Bets TV. We'll get his takeaways from last night, and we'll get some of his favorite picks and props for week 1 of the NFL season. Mean Streets continues right here on Game Plus Network. Welcome back to Mean Streets here on a Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney hanging out with you. Thanks as always for taking the time to hang out with us. And by us, I mean myself and Matthew Freedman, MattFtheOracle on Twitter. He has a brand new show over at Bets Media, Freedman Fantasy Football Show. Of course, he is of Bets Media and FTN. Matthew, what's going on, man? Welcome.
Thanks. It's good to be here. Actually, outrageously, I decided that the first week of the NFL season would be a good time to start two shows. So there's the Freedman, very originally named Freedman Fantasy Football Show, and then the Degenerate Sports Betting Show. And so doing both of those, very excited to be doing that. And then, of course, grinding out articles. It's week one.
Yes. It is week one, and it just kind of hits you, dude. Actually, you know what? You have three shows because you and I, with Elliott Chris, will be talking NFL picks on Sunday morning. So, yeah, I mean, you probably actually have 5 or 6 shows, maybe a couple that you're unaware of that you will have throughout the season. But I appreciate the time, man. I'm going to love talking football with you on Sunday mornings and some bets. You have a lot of bets already over at FTNbets.com. You have an article up there. You got the bets in the bet tracker, and something cool that we teamed up with Collectible, 20K guaranteed FTN free roll, just straight picks, absolutely free. Get in there. It's on my Twitter account. It's on yours. Get in there and make some picks, and absolutely no excuse. I guess in certain areas, I suppose there's,
the
here
one,
north of the border,
the one
you can.
state. I think
one
Nevada
spot,
is the one state.
Nevada?
Yeah.
Imagine, right? Out of all the states, that's the one. Okay. All right. Well, maybe a little drive up the road, and then you can get in on the FTN free roll. Matt, also, one thing I wanted to talk about, the FTNbets.com, $49.99, just not for your picks, my picks, Elliott's picks, everybody's NFL picks, but everybody's picks in general. You're going to get picks across the board, across all the sports. Josh Gross has got well over 100 units, I think, in every single sport that you can think of. So $49.99 there as well. Before we get into some of your favorite picks, Matt, what were some of your takeaways from the game last night? Very entertaining start here to the 2021 season.
Yeah, entertaining unless you are a Cowboys fan who happened to bet against the Cowboys. And that's the situation I'm in. So I got emotionally middled last night. It was very painful. The Cowboys lost, and I lost my bet by betting against the Cowboys. So that was painful. Of course, very in keeping with what would happen in a normal football season. So, like, to me, that was the real sign that football was back. Like just losing on both sides of it. But, from the just sort of analyst perspective of the game, fantastic to watch. It's amazing, I think, that the Buccaneers won that game. They had 4 turnovers, and you had a Cowboys offense that in many ways was outplaying the Buccaneers on offense. As great as Tom Brady is, as great as the weapons are, I mean, that Cowboys offense looked fantastic, and they were putting up a lot of yards. They had only 1 turnover. You would think if one team has 4 turnovers, the other team has 1 turnovers, and is really moving the ball on offense, that team is going to win. Of course, they had Greg Zuerlein, who missed 3 kicks, and that was probably the difference. So tough lose if you're the Cowboys, but for the Buccaneers, I mean, it just looks like they're going to roll the way that they did last year. Like nothing has changed from winning the Super Bowl, taking 6 months off, starting the season now. They look like the same team.
Yeah, they do. And you know what? To just hammer home that point that maybe Dallas gave one away, Tampa Bay was the first team in the last 81 years to win despite losing the turnover margin by 3 and allowing 30 first downs, right? So it's pretty rare. Obviously. Tampa being the first team in 81 years. Is that crazy? That doesn't make you feel very good.
I hear something like that, and it's just like, you never want to hear, this is the first time that something has happened in, someone's lifetime. It's this just feels very in keeping with the Cowboys, with the coaches that they have, who seem as if they can make the least out of something. So I don't know. Mike McCarthy, I will be curious to see how long he actually lasts in Dallas. I could see this being the second and final season for him.
I could see that too. I was shaking my head when he was, when he decided to tell Greg to go out there and kick that 60-yard field goal. And I know Tampa didn't have any timeouts at that moment, but clearly you don't want to give Tom Brady any time. I mean, you
Yeah.
saw it last year in the NFC Championship game when Green Bay did something similar and Brady was able to score points at the end of the half. And clearly he was able to do that at the end of the game. So it was a tough one, certainly for Dallas, but I think there's a lot of positive takeaways. The offense is going to roll. They're going to score a lot of points. Quickly though, any concerns about Zeke from an overall standpoint, or was that just it, man? Part of the game plan. Let's not run on the best run defense over the past couple of years. Let's exploit them, throw the football a little bit. I see a lot of people here who are just, scratching their head about taking Zeke 5th or 4th overall. I think we just need to pump the brakes a little bit, but you're the Cowboys guy. What do you think?
Honestly, I think it's a combination of both. So this year, I did have Zeke ranked down a little bit relative to other people in the industry. And part of it was, there's Tony Pollard, who's really good. That offensive line isn't as good as it used to be. The Cowboys could just lean into the passing game because they're really good at it and it's efficient. It makes sense to lean into the passing game. And Zeke is getting a little bit older. He's entering his 6th year, which is at that point in the career trajectory where a running back starts to fall off. So you put all those things together, it made me just a little bit hesitant on Zeke relative to his ADP. And then, yeah, I do think last night they looked at it and they were thinking, hey, why run against the best run defense in the league, especially when we need to throw the ball anyway to try to keep up with Tom Brady? So I think it's a combination of all of those things, which meant that, I was in a decent spot in terms of rankings yesterday of having Zeke. I think I had him number 16 in my rankings, maybe a little bit higher, but relatively speaking, I was kind of low on Zeke. Not to be like, hey, I'm really smart and I'm also the guy who bet against the Cowboys and lost. But the Zeke thing, I feel, is something you could see coming. Like, you just do not want to be going with any running back who's going against a really strong front seven for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page. I believe me, you, and Ratcliffe all had him at least outside the top 10. I think I had him at 13. Tough matchup, very tough spot for him. We'll see how it progresses here as the season continues. He did play over 80% of the snaps, so that is a positive takeaway, at least in my opinion. All right, let's take a look at week one here, Sunday. A couple games I want to tee you up for. Of course, you got your article over at FTNBets.com. Your bets are in there, your brand new betting show, and then you and I and Elliot will team up on Sunday morning to recap and give some more picks as well. Pittsburgh and Buffalo. I wanted to talk to you about this game. The Bills, Super Bowl aspirations. Pittsburgh started off so good last season and then really took a turn halfway through the year and then got their butts kicked in the playoffs against Cleveland. 48 is the total, and the Bills 6.5-point favorites. What do you think about this contest?
So for me, I think it's going to be high scoring. That number feels right. I don't have a lean on the total either way, but I am going towards the Steelers. And I'll be honest, I am considering the money line here as well. I would like to get your thoughts on this, but my sense is that based on the very legitimate success we saw the Bills have last year, this year people are a little overhyped on them. And I think at the same time, people are discounting the Steelers a little bit too much. I think Roethlisberger, if he's not better than he was last year, I don't think he's going to be much worse. Like, I think there is a chance that his arm is better this year. That defense for the Steelers, I have a lot of respect for them. And you put all that together, and then you look at kind of the historical trends that the Steelers generally, with Mike Tomlin, have been very, very undervalued, very disrespected as underdogs. They are 40-21-3 against the spread as underdogs in the Tomlin era. So I think this is more of like a 4-point game, and getting 6.5, I really like the value there. Of course, talk to me on Monday. I will probably be very wrong about this.
I don't know. I think I'm with you, man. I think it's going to be a field goal game. I have a lot of respect for the Steelers, too. And when these two teams played last year, the Bills basically said, you know what, we're going to stack the box here. We're going to, dare Ben to try to beat us over the top. And he didn't have a lot of success doing that. But you know what? Josh Allen didn't have a lot of success in that football game either. It was a bit of a grind. And the big difference here is that they have a running back that they can lean on in Pittsburgh where they didn't last year. And I think Najee Harris is going to be the difference for this team. It's a decent matchup. The Bills struggled last year in forced missed tackles. Like, they were among the leaders and not in a good way in tackling. So I think Najee Harris, if they can free him up just a little bit and Ben can push the ball down the field, at times to Claypool, I think it could open up the offense just a little bit. It's just week one, Tomlin, as good as the coach as he is and how much time he's had to prepare for this, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt that he can keep this game close and both these teams super competitive with strong defenses. I don't have a feel on the total either. I'm going to shy away from it, but I do like the Steelers here to cover. I want to ask you about Cleveland and KC, as well as maybe one of the funnest games this weekend in Arizona and Tennessee as well. So don't go anywhere, Matthew. One more segment. Keep her locked. Mean Streets continues right here on Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney and Matthew Freedman here on Mean Streets, right here on Game Plus Network. We are talking Week 1 NFL picks. I'm teeing up Matthew with a couple intriguing games and see if he has a feel on either side. Cleveland and KC. 5.5-point favorites for the Chiefs, 54.5. It is the highest total here this weekend. These two teams played in the playoffs, but Mahomes wasn't 100%. It was a little bit of an offensive struggle between both teams in that game. Oh, man, I really like this Browns roster, but this is a really tough spot, Matthew, for Cleveland to go into Arrowhead and play the Chiefs. And I actually believe in some spots you can get 4.5, so it's kind of – no, 5.5. It was 6.5, I believe it opened up at. What do you think? KC steamrolls, or does Cleveland keep it close?
Yeah, this line has moved around, and so it opened at 5.5, got bet to 6, went to 6.5, and now it's been bet back down to 5.5, and so this seems to be the range where the bettors are making the market here. I'm with you in that Browns roster, especially that defense, is really intriguing. You know, they have Myles Garrett, they have Denzel Ward; those are two strong foundational pieces, and then they added Jadeveon Clowney. You know, they added Troy Hill and Greg Newsome in the draft. Like, this is a very strong defense, but I can't go against the Chiefs, right? They've entirely rebuilt their offensive line. When we saw them last in the Super Bowl, they were playing backups to the backups, right? It was just a disgusting situation for Patrick Mahomes behind an offensive line that's not worthy of being called an offensive line. And, you know, he did the best he could, but the Chiefs, you know, they did right by him this offseason, totally rebuilt the offensive line. And, you know, offensive line guru Brett Whitefield at FTN, you know, before the season started, he ranked all of the offensive lines 1 through 32 in the NFL, and he has the Chiefs number 5. So this is, I think, a legitimate offensive line, and we know what the rest of that offense looks like. On top of that, you have the game wizardry, the game planning wizardry of Andy Reid.
Yeah.
You know, you give him time to prepare, and this guy dominates. He is 6-2 against the spread in week 1 since joining the Chiefs 8 years ago. And I don't think that's a fluke. He regularly starts the entire season hot. In weeks 1 through 4, he's 22-10 against the spread. And then, of course, you have Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the league. So coming off the Super Bowl loss, rebuilding the offensive line, a lot of time to game plan, knowing that Andy Reid's teams tend to start quickly, I have to go with the Chiefs at 5.5 or 6, wherever it is that you find it.
Yeah, it's just such a tough spot for Cleveland. I think we can agree. Yeah, you just said it. And Brett's going to be a regular here on this show on Thursdays. He's been on it before. He's a super sharp mind, and I absolutely agree with him with the offensive line. It's just a really tough spot to open up the season. And not only Andy Reid in early parts of the year in week 1, he went through like a 9-year stretch where he didn't lose coming off the bye, right? Just that extra time to prepare. He's just an offensive genius, like you said. All right, Arizona and Tennessee. This one's going to be fun to watch. 52.5. I have some bets at the end of the show. I got the over here. I'm going to tease it down in just a 6-leg teaser here as well. It's like 6-1. Teasers always look so good. Can't lose teasers. And I'm just like, oh, man, how did I lose that teaser? But I do think that there's going to be a lot of points here in this game. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I look at this game the way that I looked at, Thursday Night Football last night. I couldn't imagine not betting the over in that game.
Yeah.
You know, when lines were released months ago, that was one of the first bets I made. That and this one, the over. I mean, Tennessee, ever since Ryan Tannehill came in, the books have just routinely been too low on the strength of that offense, especially when that team is at home. And I think there's probably some noise in home away splits and different things that people can come up with, division, non-division, things like that. But I don't know, man. This Tennessee team routinely puts up numbers when they are at home. If you look at Ryan Tannehill, the over is 11-3-1 for that team when they are playing in Tennessee. You add Julio Jones on top of that, and then you add the fact the Cardinals on defense, they have no cornerbacks, right? Their ostensible number one cornerback, Malcolm Butler, he just retired. Retired is a nice way to put it. He's not good at football anymore. They just do not have the defense to be able to stop the Titans. And then on the other side of that, you have the Cardinals who play faster than anyone and play more no huddle than anyone. And you look at, bringing in Rondale Moore, another year of Kyler Murray in that offense, another year of a connection with DeAndre Hopkins. I think it's going to be a back and forth battle. And Tennessee on defense, they can't get after the passer, and they don't have the cornerbacks. They were one of the worst cornerback units in the league last year. So I see this as being a very back and forth, fast-paced aerial game where we see a lot of points. Absolutely love the over for this game.
It's going to be super fun. I think both of these teams actually will probably play in a lot of shootouts because of the secondary, which you just alluded to on both squads. And Arizona's schedule is just set up to have a ton of points. And I know how much you really like Kyler and some statistics that you had pointed out on your Twitter feed about Kyler in the first half of the last year, and then the second half, a lot of differences between his game on the ground and in the air after that shoulder injury. I think the sky's the limit for Kyler, and I love the addition, Rondale Moore. We only got about 30 seconds, Matthew. I know you got a lot of props up there, and I don't want to give too much away. Check out the betting package. Check out Matthew's show, multiple shows. But is there one prop that stands out to you here this evening that you want to share?
Yeah, Sony Michel on Sunday Night Football, under 9.5 carries, one of the best props that I see on the board. I think it's going to be tough for a backup to come in and get a ton of carries right away.
Yeah, good call. It's going to take him a little bit of time, I think, to learn that offense, but I think he could eventually take over, but week one, maybe not so much. Matthew, appreciate your time, man. You're fantastic. MattFtheOracle on the Twitter machine. Check out all of his content over at FTNBets.com, FTNFantasy.com, FTNDaily.com. We got Javier Prellezo in here next. We're going to turn the page and talk a little DFS. Keep her locked. Welcome back to Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. We're bringing in Javier Prellezo of FTN. He is the absolute GOAT, and something we'll do on this show is just a little sneak peek of week one as from a DFS standpoint. We're going to rotate through some of the sharps that we have over at FTN Daily, and we are starting with Javier Prellezo, J Prellezo DFS. Javi, we had no time to talk about the boys. We've talked enough about them. I know you're sour. They hung in there. Offensive PI, intentional grounding. Nothing. We're going to get into Sunday action. If you have something to say, you can say it if you really do want to.
No, I'm good, man. It's just that it hurts too much to talk about it. I'm good, Meaney. We can move on.
It was a heartbreaking loss, yes, but I think there's a lot of positive takeaways that you could take from the Cowboys. Let's say that. If Dak is healthy, they are definitely going to hang around. The division is not going to be too tough to win. We'll say that, okay? Giants, Eagles, Washington, whatever. I think it was a good first start for the boys. All right, Sunday. What are you doing? Let's kind of rapid fire through. We only have a few minutes, unfortunately, dude. But quarterback position, what are you doing at QB week one?
Yeah. No, listen, my focus is Patrick Mahomes. So I'm a 10 lineup kind of guy. I hand build all my lineups. I'm going to do a bunch more using the FTN Daily Optimizer, which is great if you haven't checked that out. But for me, Patrick Mahomes is the guy that I'm going to focus around. It's going to be chalky. A lot of people will use Patrick Mahomes and single stack him. Like, they're not going to go Hill and Kelsey. I love going double stack. It's very expensive in DFS, but there's so much value from the receiver standpoint. I think it's perfectly fine. You can pay up at running back. So Patty Mahomes up top for me, Meaney. You want me to go through the second and third I like to, or you want to talk about that?
Yes. All right. Mike is yours. Keep going.
So the second guy I'm looking at here is Ryan Tannehill. He's getting the addition of Julio Jones. They're facing off against Arizona, who struggled defensively. One of the worst pass defenses in the league last year. They did nothing to make themselves, that much better. I still think, they'll be a little bit better, but they're still going to be a team that we can target on. I love going Ryan Tannehill, and I love double stacking him too. Julio and A.J. Brown. I think A.J. Brown will get some ownership. Julio is going to go way under the radar. So I love going Patrick Mahomes 1, Ryan Tannehill 2. And then the last guy I'll touch on here is probably Matty Ice. When I came on Mean Streets, I was talking about him going against Philly. Sorry about your Eagles there. They're not going to be very good this year. They're going to struggle defensively. They're going to struggle across the board, but I think offensively they'll have some moments of brilliance. But Matt Ryan. And I think I'm going to single stack there. If I do double stack, maybe it'll be Pitts, but he's going to be over-owned. And I'm hesitant on rookies week one. But Matt Ryan going with Calvin Ridley is going to be another favorite stack of mine. Meaney, we're winning all the money. I'm winning $1 million this year. I already told you.
I believe you, man. You've had a lot of success playing DFS. This is why I got you on the show. Not going to lie. I mean, I think you're overall a great dude, but I also wanted you to come on here and give some winners for the peeps. And you're starting here pretty strong. We've talked a lot about KC and Tennessee already on this show. Got about a minute, Javi. What are you doing at the running back position?
Yeah, running back is going to be, I'm going to try to get as much as possible around the Aaron Jones price range. I love Aaron Jones here. I think he's too cheap. Again, this New Orleans defense, they kind of took a hit. They were a top run defense last year, top 3 run defense, but Aaron Jones, he gets too much of the ball to be that cheap. At 6,800 on DraftKings, I think that's a steal of a price, even in a tough matchup. And even in, as I mentioned, the Saints run defense isn't going to be as good. Plus, he's involved in the passing game. Yeah, A.J. Dillon's supposed to get increased role this year, but I love Aaron Jones. I think he's going to go under the radar because everyone's going to see how good the Saints run defense was. And he's my boy there. The second guy I'm going to touch on, we'll make it quick, Antonio Gibson, way too cheap in this matchup as well. I just think he's going to be the workhorse. There's nobody else there and he gets an upgrade with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Fitzmagic, I guess you could say.
You could call him Fitzmagic.
Yeah. Yeah, but he's way too cheap too at 5,900. So those are the two guys I'm focusing around. And you can do Patty Mahomes with double stack and those 2 running backs and be happy.
Absolutely. I love both of those calls at the running back position. Talked a lot about both of them with Adam Pfeiffer, Fade the Chalk, a free podcast. We went game by game. But Aaron Jones is too cheap. He's way too cheap. And the Saints run defense, it kind of struggled towards the end of the season. I think this is going to be a weird year for New Orleans. I don't know if they're going to be a playoff team, and they're missing some players, of course, from last year's roster. Javi, a pleasure, man. I'm sorry I didn't give you more time. Hopefully you forgive me and you come back another time. Check out Javier Prellezo. He's got some his must-haves will be up at ftndaily.com. If you're part of the package, you get the FTN brand new NFL Optimizer. You're going to have the cheat sheets, exposures, and an opportunity to chat to Javi as well as other sharps over at FTN in our Discord channel as well. Projections, ownership projections, it's all there included over at ftndaily.com/pricing. Good luck tonight, or this weekend rather, and try to have a good night. And, clearly Cowboys are on your mind, but it's all good, man. It's all good.
We'll be all right. We're winning the NFC East. Thanks, Meaney.
All right. Good luck with that. All right. We got some picks here on the way. I'll keep her locked. Welcome back to Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. Going to finish the show here with a couple of my favorite props and picks for this weekend. Last year was pretty successful, over 45 units once, so hopefully we can continue here. And we'll keep track. I'll hold myself accountable. When I lose, we'll definitely address it. Next week, we'll have a little pick tally board here. So here's the NFL props that I'm feeling, and I have a whole lot more over at ftnbets.com. Make sure you're following ftnalerts.com. $49.99 for the package will get you all the NFL bets as well as every other sport. So, of course, I've talked so much about Calvin Ridley this week. I have him up at the top, over 85.5 receiving yards. 109 yards is what he averaged in 8 games at Julio Jones last year. The Eagles secondary is atrocious. A.J. Brown over 65.5. I think this is going to climb up to right around 72, 73. He's been one of the leaders in yards per attempt over the past couple seasons. This is going to be a shootout between the Titans and Arizona, and the Cardinals have a ton of holes in their secondary. Devonta Smith, I think it's also going to be a potential shootout in Philadelphia between the Eagles and the Falcons. A really good spot here for Devonta Smith at 43.5. I also like the over 3.5 catches. Marvin Jones, the Texans, just a team, the second most yards allowed last season. You could throw on them, and they allowed a lot of deep plays. 7 plays last year of at least 40-plus yards through the air. That was the second most in football. I like Marvin Jones. And then Antonio Gibson, over 13.5 rushing attempts. I think he probably racks up about 17 on the ground. This is his backfield. I was looking for Corey Davis. I couldn't find him anywhere. He's 26-1 to have 2 touchdowns. I may sprinkle like a quarter of a unit on that one. For the overall picks against the spread, San Fran rolls. I think they win by 2 touchdowns. Bill Belichick has had like 3 months to prepare for Tua. Good luck. Pats roll as well. Vegas, this is the upset. I think they could win, but they hang around. I got plus 5.5 a few weeks ago. This is going to be a tough spot here for Baltimore week 1 in Las Vegas. The first game with fans. Gus Bradley there is going to have that defense playing, not all year, but playing week 1. I think that's going to be a good spot for Las Vegas. On the money line, Mini, Seattle, Green Bay, and then you see the totals there. Over in Arizona, the under in Denver, the over in Atlanta between the Eagles, and then the parlay is just kind of 4 favorites there at plus 280. And then the teaser is 6-1. The Rams to win by 2, San Fran by a field goal, Philly not to lose by more than 9, Las Vegas not to lose by more than 10, and then the over in Arizona, Tennessee, and Philly and Atlanta. Good luck this weekend. Any questions, hit me up, and we'll be back on Monday to recap everything. Enjoy. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers.